Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Shellie Geigle with J&S Hobbies and Crafts, and today's tutorial is on the Stamperia Winter Valley Stationery gift box set. Now you can use any paper that you want, and I was inspired by Mel Adler about 5 or so years ago on making this. She had made me a Valentine's one, and she said she was not the original creator of the design of this, that she was inspired by somebody else. Anyway, the finished box size is about 2 inches, about 6 1/8 and 5 1/8. And inside, when you take off the lid, is your stationery gift box. Now down here is a little pencil or pen holder, and I'm gonna just put this back so you can kind of see. I have little tuck pockets for little sentiments that the person who receives this as a gift can put these on cards or note cards, use them as they please. I also have a little notepad here and another pocket up here, and what I created was just something to hold like stamps. So I'm going to tilt this back. It does stand upright, and I have this loaded. Over here I have gift tags. And over here what I have is little note cards or gift cards that they can write on and put a sentiment on. And then back here, here's another little like gift tag. It's larger, so I have it in the back pocket. But cards. They can either stamp inside or handwrite their message. And then I created, I think there's about 6 envelopes here. So that is what we will be making today. Now I also made another one with the Stamperia Welcome Home. This tutorial is on the Stamperia Winter Valley, but I want to show you how pretty this paper turned out. All right, let's move on into the materials list. Let's review the materials. I am going to be using one of the Stamperia Romantic Collection, the Winter Valley 12 by 12 paper pack. And there is so many good things in here, and I love this paper pack, so I wanted to use it again this year. Next, I'm going to be using the American Crafts 12 by 12 80-pound weight white cardstock. And this will be for our base, our pockets, stuff like that. I'm also going to be using Coordination's 65-pound weight cardstock, and I'll be using that for my envelopes and for my writing tablet that goes into my notepad. This is optional. I'm going to be using some string for my tags. I'm using the Art Glitter Dries Clear Glue and that metal tip. Last, I'm using the Elmer's rubber cement so I can adhere my little writing tablet together, and it will be easy to tear off little pieces of notepad. Now you can add lace, bling, whatever you want to yours to decorate it up. I'm just going to be using what's in the paper pack there for me. Things that you're going to need. You're going to need a ruler, pencil, eraser, craft knife is handy, scissors, bone folder or scoring tool, your scoring board, and a paper cutter. So let's get started. We're going to review the cutting and scoring guide pre-cuts that I gave you. So the first piece was a 12 by 12 piece, and we called that our base. Our first score was at 1 inch, 3 inch, 9 inch, and 11 inch. And then it said to rotate once, and we're going to score at 5 and 7. And we're just going to leave that alone. We'll move on to our next pre-cut. The next one was a lid. and it was 6 3/8 by 10 3/8. So what the instructions said was you were going to lay this down. We are 6 3/8 across, and you're going to score at 2 1/8, 4 1/4, and then it says you're going to turn your paper, so now we're sitting at 10 3/8, 2 1/8, and 8 1/4. We'll go ahead and set that to the side. We had a large pocket, it's 4 by 7 7/8. It said to lay your piece, so you are 7 7/8 across. We're going to score at 1 inch and 6 7/8. So then we're going to turn this and lay it so we are 4 inches across, and we are going to score at 1 inch. Our next piece was a 2 1/2 by 5 1/4, and we called it a medium pocket. We laid this down so that we are 5 1/4 across. We scored at a 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 4 1/4, and 4 3/4. We then turned it, so now we are sitting at 2 1/2, and we scored at a 1/2 inch. We had a 2 1/2 by 4 5/8. We called it a small pocket. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 4 5/8 across. We scored at a 1/2, 1 inch, 3 5/8, 4 1/8. Now we turned it. We are now 2 1/2 across, and we just scored at a 1/2 inch. Next, we had an XS for extra small pocket. It's 2 1/2 by 3 1/8. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 2 1/2 across, and we scored at a 1/2 inch. We then turned this. We are now 3 1/8 across. We scored at a 1/2 and 2 5/8. Then we had two pieces that we called a stamp pocket. They are 1 1/2 by 1 7/8. There is no scoring. We cut a 3 3/8 by 8 1/2 inch. We called it a notepad. What we did was we laid this down so we are 8 1/2 inches across. We scored at 4 1/8 and 4 3/8. It's our notepad cover. And the last one, it's optional. It's a stamp holder. It's 1 1/4 by 6 1/2. We laid this down. We are 6 1/2 across. We scored at 2 1/2, 5 1/8, and 5 1/4. So the next thing was inside for your notepad. Paper. And you can use copy paper. I use 65-pound paper. But all we did was we cut it at 3 1/8 by 3 7/8. And we stacked it until we were about 3/16. And I will go ahead and show you when we get to this part in the video, if you're working with 8 1/2 by 11 paper, to see how I'm cutting mine to try and get the most out of it. I did have on page 4, this is just in case that you needed help making your own envelopes. And we're going to review that really quick. For those of you that don't have envelopes that want to, I'm using 65-pound. And this is 7 3/4 by 11 inch. And our final envelope size is going to be about 4 3/8 by 5 3/4. So what we did was we laid this on our scoring board. We are 7 3/4 across. We scored at 1 inch. And we scored at 6 3/4. We then turned it, so we are 11 inches across. We scored at 3 5/8 and 8 inches. And when we're ready to assemble that, we will. And the last thing is, if you were needing help with a card-based size that will accommodate your envelope, all I did was cut a 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 piece of cardstock. And you would lay it down so that you are 8 1/2 inches across, and you just scored at 4 1/4 and fold. All right, let's start assembling. We're not going to go over pre-cuts for decorative paper. The only reason why I gave you that information was in case you wanted to make this box with different paper, and so that you could have some pieces there that would fit. We're going to start with the base, and what I've done is I've lightly gone over my score lines to make sure you get the correct orientation. So you can see I got 2 score lines going this way and the rest are up and down. So grab your ruler and place it at the top. Make a mark at the 2-inch and the 10-inch. What we're going to end up doing, as you can see, whoops, come on camera, there we go, 2-inch mark and 10-inch mark. What we're going to do is we are going to cut at that 2-inch mark all the way down to our first score line and then over. Here at the 10-inch, all the way down to the score line and over. So, and I want to try and keep a rather straight line here. So I'm going to do the best I can. I'm putting it on here, and I'm just going to cut all the way down to that first score line. And then I'm going to do over here, make sure I'm at where I'm supposed to be, all the way down to that first line. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is cut across. So that piece we don't need. And then down here, of course, I need to do that. So that is what you should have so far. Now all we need to do is cut out these pieces here. All right, let's go ahead and start folding on all those score lines. And then I'm going to erase all my pencil marks. Now the correct orientation of this is the small piece is actually the back. So when it stands up, it's like this. The big piece is what you will be seeing in the front, and that is the back. All right, we're going to work with the front piece first, start getting our paper. And I'm going to go ahead and erase all my pencil marks. I wanted to make sure that everyone had the correct orientation there. In your paper pack, you will find this beautiful print. And on the back, it is this. So what I was wanting to get on the front is this section. So that's in the front. So I'm going to turn my paper like this, because if you're following along and want to make this exactly the same as me, I'm going to be giving you some measurements to get the piece out so that you have the same leftovers as me. Otherwise, if you're using other paper, you can go ahead and look at page 5, and it tells you the designer paper measurements. So what I'm getting after right now is the outside of the stationery box. I need 2 4 7/8 by 5 7/8 pieces. However, I'm going to be cutting mine to get a specific piece out. So if you're following along, you're going to measure over this way, 6 1/4, and cut. You can put this in your reserve pile. It's a scrap pile for now. I just call it a reserve pile. All right, the next thing is I'm going to measure over 5 7/8 and cut. And I'm going to put that off to the side. I will be using this here in a minute. Our next cut, measure over 4 7/8 and cut. And I'm going to put this off to the side as well there. So on this piece, again, when you're looking at this, you're going to want to look at it like this with the large flaps up here. This piece goes right here in between those score lines. And you'll give yourself maybe a little bit of a white lip up there. So Again, I'm folding this back behind these large flaps so I can see what I'm doing. So I can get this on straight. And I'm centering it in there, and I'll leave a white border on the sides. Try to get that on as straight as I can. So that is what you should have. I'm going to stick that off to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on these panels first, and then I'll get to the back side. Now when we do the back side, we have to flip it around to look at it like this and place our orientation the way it should be. Because, and if you're doing this by yourself and you're using different paper, you just remember, this part goes up and then this part. So you'll want the orientation going the correct way. So for the sides of the box, I'm going to need a 1 7/8 wide by 4 7/8 tall. So with this piece here, we set off to the side. I'm going to turn it this way. I'm going to measure over 4 7/8 and cut. And I'll stick that off to the side with my other one. Now I'm going to measure over 1 7/8 and cut. I'm going to measure over again 1 7/8 and cut. So 1 7/8 and 1 7/8. This piece I'm going to set off to the side. So you can arrange this any way you want. I'm going to fold this flap behind, and I'm going to glue that down right in between here and here, leaving a white border all the way around. I'll fold in this side so all I can see is what I'm working with, and I'm going to do that. Okay, we're going to cut for these, and these were the back wraparound flaps right here. And we need 2 pieces that are 7/8 by 4 7/8. Grab this back out. We're going to measure over 7/8 and cut, and we'll measure over again 7/8 and cut. All right, let's verify it fits, and it should. So that one goes here, and this one here, or vice versa, whichever way you want to do it. I'm going to go over here because part of the tree is over here, and then this one will go over here. I have another fun project coming up after this one that is useful and good for gift giving. And I'm going to be using probably a newer paper that I'm getting in, and you'll be able to see that as soon as it gives in. I'll do a what's new video. All right, so what's going to happen is when these are together in the back, folded in, this is going to be the front and the sides. All right, let's flip this around because we're going to get back here. Now, we had this piece left from the cuttings here, and what I would like you to do is turn your paper like this. Measure over 3/4 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Measure over 6 inches and cut. So 6 inches. All right, we'll stick that off to the side. So this is the one we're going to work with. Measure over 5 7/8 and cut. So this is what you should have. We're going to turn it this way, measure over 4 7/8 and cut. So make sure your orientation is correct. I'm going to fold in these sides. I'm going to apply glue, and I'm going to center it right on in there and glue that down. All right, we have these pieces right here, and we're going to need 2 pieces that are 7/8 by 4 7/8. I'm going to grab this back out, and all I'm going to do with this is I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to measure over 7/8 and cut, measure over again 7/8. All right, these need to be chopped down, so I'll just turn them this way, measure over 4 7/8. These are ready to go, and all I'm going to do is kind of place glue on this one, center it in there, and then this one will go over here. Now, if you want to do a bottom piece, you can. I'm going to go ahead and place one of my things at the bottom. And this is optional. It's just one of my things that I do sometimes. All right, so this is what it's going to look like when it's all together. Like this. There's my little thing. And on the back. And I think that looks really good. We're going to set this off to the side and we are going to get our lid together. So here's our lid. It's 6 3/8 by 10 3/8. We've already done our scoring. All we're going to do right now is we're going to put this on our paper cutter. And we're looking at it the long way. We're going to cut from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here. We are not cutting any pieces out. So now what we're going to do is just fold on all those score lines, making sure that when we fold, they're lining up with the sides. All right, this is the easy part. Let's grab our glue. Now you see these two flaps? Well, we're going to put some glue on. And I'll put some glue over here. We're going to pull this up even with the side. And we're going to line up our side there. Press it in. This one too. We'll do the same over here. Pull them in and get them in there. Now if you get it off a little and you need to do a little trimming up here, do so. I'm just going to go ahead and start burnishing. All right, it's time to start decorating. If you're working with the same paper as me, in your paper pack, you'll find this. On the back, it's this. So I'm going to turn it this way. I'm going to measure over 2 inches and cut, and I'll measure over again 2 inches and cut. So this is what we should have. On this piece, we're going to measure over 6 inches and cut. All right, flip these over. And we're going to go ahead and glue one up here in the front and one back here. Let's do that. And you could situate this any way you want. So that's what you should have. Now for this, I'm going to measure over 6 inches and cut. This piece here, I'm going to apply glue. And I'm glued to the top. Now with this piece we're going to measure over 2 inches and cut. We'll measure over again 2 inches. And I'll stick that in my scrap pile or reserves, whatever you want to call it. And I will glue a piece to each side. So I'm going to go ahead and slip this on. And in your paper pack, you'll see this. And I think you can choose whichever one you want. And I'm just going to cut out letters for Santa. And then I'm going to cut out and around this. If you have any scrap pieces of cardstock, you can glue this down and cut out and around that to kind of stiffen it up. And of course, if you'd rather use like the back side, you can stamp a sentiment on there, whatever you want. But this is what I'm doing. And now I'm going to cut out and round, leaving about 1/16 of white. I have that done. And I'm going to glue that right here. So only half of this is going to get glue. And it's just for the lid. But I want to just kind of place it there and find my middle as best I can. So now this is what it looks like, and I think that is just absolutely adorable. All right, we're done with the lid for now. Let's open this up. In your paper pack, you will have this print, and on the back it is this. I'm going to turn my print this way. I'm going to measure over 4 7/8 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Measure over 3 3/8 and cut. Keep this handy, just set it off to the side. Measure over 5 7/8 and cut. This piece here, I'm looking at the smaller side. This piece will place right in between those score lines, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a white lip there. So now we're working on the back flaps. I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm going to measure over 7/8 and cut, and I'll measure over again 7/8 and cut. So after making that cut, this is what you should have. I'm going to place this one over here, which is a continuation, and I'll just place that one right here. Pull this back out of your scrap pile or reserves, whatever you'd like to call it. We'll turn it this way. We're going to measure over 4 7/8 and cut. You should have these pieces. Now take this one, measure over 1 7/8 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Measure over 5 7/8 and cut. So with this piece, I'm going to apply glue, and I'm going to glue that down. Now most of this does get covered up, but you will be able to see some of your front part by the time we're done getting our pockets on there. Now this piece, we're going to make several cuts, and we're going to do it in steps. So our first one is we're going to measure over 7/8 and cut. We're going to apply glue, and we're going to glue that down right on in between your score line and the outside. Our next cut, we're going to measure over 1 7/8 and cut. Apply glue, and we're going to place that one right here. Our next cut, measure over 5 7/8 and cut. Apply glue, and we're going to center that right in between our score lines there. Now some of this image will be covered up with our notepad, but that's okay. We'll be able to see a lot of it. All right, measure over 1 7/8 and cut. We're going to apply glue, and we're going to glue that down. Our next one, measure over 7/8 and cut. And we'll apply glue to that, and we'll glue that down. All right, we're going to go ahead and grab our large pocket. And what you're going to do on this is you're going to have 2 score lines. Go up to your score line and cut over. Oh, here I go. I actually got an extra score line in mine. I didn't want to recut mine when I was doing it. So just up to your score line. Cut out that piece. And now we're going to fold. So we're going to get our paper on this before we attach it. So right now what I want you to do is just fold up that bottom flap, fold in your sides, so all you see is what's needed to be covered. In your paper pack, you will have this piece. On the back, it's this. I'm going to turn mine sideways. I'm going to measure over 2 7/8 and cut. Next, I'm going to measure over 5 3/4 and cut. And this is the piece I'm going to use because mostly this is going to get covered up. That's why I didn't use the bird. Apply glue. And we'll go ahead and leave ourselves a little bit of a white lip, and we'll glue that down. All right, we are ready to get this in. So what you're going to want to do is we're first going to put glue on the bottom here. And here are our flaps. We're going to take this piece, we're going to pull this up straight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply glue to these flaps. We're going to pull this up, tuck these in to where your score lines are, and pull that over. Very easy. And once you think you have it where it needs to be, we're just going to use our tool to burnish that down a bit. Next, let's grab our medium pocket and small pocket. Now on these, they're a little bit different. You see our score lines and then one across the bottom. On the inside score line, we are going to clip and straight over. And just take that out. Oops, what do I got on here? Well, I've got score tape residue. That's what my problem is. And this is what you should have. And then you're going to fold on all the score lines. So it's going to look something like this. We'll do the same on this. Inside score line. And we're going to fold on all those score lines. And we are going to get the paper on this before we do anything. So tuck the bottom one up and all your sides back behind. Now this piece, I'm going to turn mine this way, measure over 1 7/8 and cut. So what's going to happen is our medium's going to be on this side, our small's going to end up over there. From over here, measure over 3 1/8 and cut. We'll apply glue and we will place that right here on the medium pocket. For the small pocket, measure over 2 1/2 and cut. And that piece gets glued down to the front of the small pocket. So let's get these down. Okay, so I want to show you this so you can understand if you're doing this by yourself. We will be going like this and tucking these in. So what we need to cut for, and I'm going to show you here, what we need to cut for is for the side over here and these two flaps back here. And we'll be doing for the side over here and for the back flaps on that one too. So this is the small over here and that. I have a cutting that is about 3/8 inch, and I am gonna use that. You can do 1/2 inch if you'd like. It's on the pre-cutting guide, but I am just gonna use this because it's useful. So the first thing that I'm gonna do with this is I'm going to measure over 1 7/8, and I'll measure over again 1 7/8 and 1 7/8. Now it says to do only 2, but I do want to get the side piece over here as well. So 1 7/8 cut, 1 7/8 cut. Keep cutting 1 7/8 until you can't anymore. So I just kept cutting and cutting and cutting until I couldn't anymore, and I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 6 pieces, and I'm going to use those. So here's our medium pocket, and if you're looking at it like this, take one of your pieces and glue it just right here. That's it, nothing there. And I'm not sure if this was on for the sides over here, if it was on the pre-cutting guide or on the directions on the designer paper cutting, but okay, so you have one there. Come over to the small pocket, and we're going to put one on the right side, just right here. We'll make that even. So this is what yours should look like: small pocket, medium pocket. Now I've got 4 left. So now I want you to turn this over, and you see this outside flap. We put some glue here, and I'm just going to bring it till it goes right next to the white. And I'll do that over here. That's good. We're going to turn this one over, and we're going to do the same thing. We are ready to place these. So I want to show you first before we do. We're going to do the same thing where we go like this, and then we will tuck and we'll place glue back here and back here to get this on. But first I would like to show you how this is going to look when done, as far as what kind of spacing that you're going to have on the sides. The idea is we're going to place the medium one first. The reason why we have nothing paper on these sides is because these two glue together. Now mine aren't glued in place, but you can see you are just going to be able to fit that so that it lines up with the sides by the time you are done. So let's start, and I'm going to try and help you with this so that you can get this on correctly. Okay, I'm going to bring this forward. Now this flap needs to be about a 1/16 away from that edge. So if you were to place a pencil mark measuring about a 1/16 and place a pencil mark here, that is where the side of that goes. And it goes all the way up against your pocket. Now it's time to pull this in and get this. Otherwise you're going to stick out too far. And we're going to have this one with some glue. So the first one is this, and we're going to make sure that that is even with the side of our piece. And then this one is going to press back and be flat on the side so that this can nestle up next to it. So I'm just kind of holding it in place here. And then once I think that's grabbed, I'm going to place my hand in, back behind, and burnish this piece. Okay, so when you're placing this one, just butt it up right next to this other one. You might want to leave a sliver or so, but the idea is to leave a 1/16 inch away from the side. So I'm just pressing that in. Now, here is this flap. Here is this one. And I'm going to get the side over here as well because it needs to stick to this one. So here we go. We're going to press it up right up against so they seam together. Kind of hold it there. And then I'm going to get this one so it is even with the side of this. So here we go. I'm going to show you. Even. Okay. Let's grab our 3/8 by 8.5 notepad, and we're going to fold so that our sides come even, and then we're going to kind of press this until it's straight up and down and we have spacing. So this is the front of my notepad, and I'm going to get paper for that as well as the inside. I'm going to be using this piece. I'm just going to turn mine upside down. I'm going to measure over 3 1/4 and cut. After I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'll turn it this way. I'll measure over 4 inches and cut, and I'll measure over again 4 inches and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Now, optional. With this leftover piece, after making these 2 cuts, you can actually place that right up here and then on the inside here. I'm just going to cut 2, and this is optional. I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are about 1/8 inch wide. So it's real slim. Just 2 very slender pieces. And I'm going to glue this one down here. And the other one on the inside between my score lines. And it's optional. You really don't have to do this. But I had the extra scrap. All right, the bird. We're going to center this on the outside and glue that down. Optional is a 1/3 piece that is 3 1/4 by 4 inch, and that just gets placed down here. Now please know that your notepad, when we place it in, is going to get glued down, so you're really not going to see a whole lot back there. So that is optional to do a 1/3 piece, and I'm not going to. All right, there's that. Next, we have an extra small pocket, 2 1/2 by 3 1/8. Down here, all we're going to do is clip on that score line and over. And we're going to fold. And we'll glue that down in just a moment. All right, flip this over, pull in your sides. We're going to add just a little bit of glue down to those corners and we'll fold that up. So this part is the bottom of the pocket. Let's get our paper for this. In your scrap pile you should have this. This is already 1 7/8. We're just going to measure over 2 inches and cut. All right, apply glue and we will place that right there on that pocket. And we'll center it in so we have a white border all the way around. Let's place these. So this one, what you're going to want to do is we're going to apply glue to the back side. Now, I am going to press that down so all I can see is what needs to be glued down. I am going to come up just below that score line that goes across. And I'm going to leave probably about 1/8 of an inch from the side, but you don't want it on the score line. And you want to stay away so that when this comes up, it will still fold in nicely. And there's some spacing. So there is that. Here is that extra small pocket. We're going to apply glue here to those flaps. And I'll bring it down even with that. And I'm going to leave about 1/8 or so away, kind of center it between this score line and the edge of our piece there. Now in this paper pack, on the back sheet we have a cut apart sheet. I want to cut out the house. Okay, I'm going to cut out and around this. Then I'm going to mount it to some white cardstock, glue it down to stiffen it up a little. And I will cut out and around that, leaving about a 1/16 of white showing. I'm going to glue that down to the front. Let's grab our 1.5 by 1 7/8 stamp pockets. I have this in my reserves. I'm going to turn it this way. I'm going to measure over 1 3/8 and cut. All right, next I'm going to measure over 1 7/8 and cut. And then what I'm going to do is turn it around and measure over 1 7/8 from that side. Okay, so these little stamp pockets are actually going to mount right in here, but I want to put a curve to it. So the best way to do that is to figure out how you want to situate this. So there's that, it goes side to side. And I want my little curve over here. I'm going to use this now for over here. So if it's like this, you cut it like this, you're going to rotate it. You'll bring it over to the corner of this one so that you can get the same. Okay, now we're going to glue these down. And I'm just going to flip these over. And I'll bring it from side to side. Okay. And now I'm just going to cut out, leaving a little bit of a white border. Now, when you glue this down, you'll put a thin line, very thin, the bottom and the side. And you'll want to make sure that you do not interfere with that score line. So what I'm doing is I'm just pulling that up to make sure that I don't get on that and I still can move that around. It doesn't interfere any. And I'll do the same thing over here. So along this. We're ready to get our notepad in, and I am using rubber cement. Now several people have commented saying that you can just use your glue for that. You can use Mod Podge. Me, I'm gonna go with the rubber cement, and also we have that stamp holder. So if you want to just fold on all those score lines, you can, and just for now, just stick that in one of your pockets here. So on the cutting guide, it said if you wanted help with how to cut your 8.5 by 11, if you're using 8.5 by 11, to get the most out of your paper. So I'm going to lay it so we're 11 inches across. Our first cut is 3 1/8, and then we're going to keep doing 3 1/8. Okay, this piece here, you can actually use this for smaller tags, this leftover piece. So I'll put that off to the side. Little small tags that you can put paper on. So these are all 3 1/8. And now we're just going, I'm doubling all mine up. We're going to cut these at 3 7/8. 3 7/8. 3 7/8. And that's your waist, unless you can figure out a way to do it. So you'll be able to you'll get more out of your piece if you do it like that. So your notepad should be no thicker than 3/16. And mine is 3/16. If you get it thicker than that, what's going to happen is your notepad is not going to be able to accommodate and lay flat. All right, I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to get my rubber cement out. I have this little cutting mat here to save my workspace. So what I'm doing is making sure that I'm getting a flat edge. And once you have that, and those of you that followed along with the little mini notepads, I told you my thing was so old. I did order a new one because I have big dried clumps in there. And it was quite a bit more expensive than $3.29 when I bought this years ago. But I'm going to use it as best I can, get what out. So you want a flat edge. Make sure they are all in line. So I'm going to hold it a little bit more. And you don't have to hold it super tight. Just enough to keep them together. Now your first piece is going to be torn off, so don't worry about if you get gunk on there. And I'm just going to, once I do that, and I know I got a layer on there, I'm just going to kind of wipe off excess. This one gets torn off, of course. So I have not tried the Mod Podge or the other really to be able to demonstrate that. All right, once you have it, you can just lay it down on a piece of scrap cardstock or whatever you're using to protect your surface. I'm going to set this off to the side and let this dry. Our little stamp holder. Now this does not have a pocket in here. Pretty much all it's designed to do, and I have some stamps here, I just folded them over, is just close over it and be tucked into a pocket. And I did put that little bit of spacing in there to try up here to try and help it lay flatter. So you can just stick it in there. You could stick it in this pocket even, and it will hold it shut, or you can make a little band to slip down over it. But let's go ahead and put some paper to it. I have a little piece, and I am going to use this because it's a great little scrap. Littlest pieces I can find that will work on this so that I don't have to cut up anything else. I do have this, but I wanted to save it for maybe if I'm using to make my cards or a tag out of. So I'm going to need a 1 1/8 by 1 1/8 piece, and that's going to go right up here. If you would rather just lay your piece down and use a pencil to kind of measure what you need, go ahead. I am just going to do that. I don't have to be super accurate. And then this piece is going to fit just fine. So these are just, you know, little things. You don't have to be super accurate, just however you see fit here. There's that. Now for this. I'm going to need something that is about 1 1/8 by 2 3/8. All right. So I found another scrap piece that'll work rather than me cutting into a larger piece. So I'm going to cut this to 1 1/8 by 2 3/8. And I'm going to use this, and I'll just glue that down. Now some other things that we can do on this is to add maybe a cut apart to it or whatever you'd like, you know. Get that on straight first. So there's my little stamp holder. And I'm just going to slide that in, and then I can put it in a pocket. If I wanted to add a magnet, I could, but it's really not necessary. I really don't want to waste it. After a while, what's going to happen is when this closes up, it's going to flatten it out anyway. But if you want to add something really cute, you can. For instance, maybe this. I'm just going to cut it out, and I'm not going to back this. Here's my little stamp holder in there. I'm just going to glue it right here to give a little more color to that. All right, all we need now is our notepad in there. We do need to go over the envelope and a base card if you need that. So here's one of my base cards. And I also had some scrap leftovers, and here's the thing with this for little note cards that they could use on gifts or whatever is when you have some scraps, just make sure they'll fit in one of the pockets. Like this one isn't going to fit here. It'll fit in that one. And you can also do smaller ones for little gift giving. And an idea would be to put all your little note cards over here. Maybe you can chop this down way smaller, but maybe tags can go over here. So let's go over the envelope. What we're going to do is put this on our paper cutter, or just do it by hand. You're going to cut up to this point and over, up and over to that score line. You will do the same up here. So I'll be right back as soon as I got that out. Okay, and I'm going to fold back on all these pieces. And I am just using a lightweight cardstock at 65 pounds. Okay, so you will notice that one flap is larger, or this way, than the other. So this one, 3 1/8, and this one is about 3 5/8. So from this score line to here is about 3 5/8. Now what you can do to give this more of a curve, you don't have to, is once we have this in and that here, you can just go ahead and use an envelope like that, or you can kind of curve it if you'd like. Now one thing I like to do is, you see where we have, when you close this up and you see these little flaps right here? Well, I'm going to make right where the edge of this meets the top of this, I'm going to make a little dot. So you can see where my dots are. I'm going to cut to the corners, just to give it a little shape, and it's easier to get cards in and out, kind of. For me it is anyway. Don't have to be perfect. So now when you fold that in and this comes up, you can kind of see. So let's add a little glue. And I'll line up my edge over here. And I will line up my edge over here as best I can. From this score line, measure up 3/4. This is just an idea. You can do whatever it is that you want. And make pencil lines. And then what you can do is find the center, and that is about 2 7/8 center. So now I'm just going to kind of draw a line from that, and you don't have to, it's just an extra idea. But then you can just cut. So now there is your envelope. So here's some ideas for what you can do for like gluing for people who use this. If you have any 1/4-inch score tape, what you can do is just lay a piece along the edge. So it could be like that. So all they have to do is remove that, and they can place it over. So that is how you would make an envelope, at least one that will fit this. In case you don't want to go out and buy any, use some of your cardstock. So I'm going to make a couple cards with you and show you how you can scrap together some things and also some other ideas. Right now in your reserves, you'll have a piece like this. It's this one. That is about 4 1/4. So that will fit our outside. And I have a scrap piece that all cut down to 4 1/4. So first thing I'm going to do is get this down. Now you can have the tree, and that would be absolutely beautiful, and you can put a sentiment, you can along the bottom, you can use this side, you can use that side, like go underneath it and layer. So this is just an idea for using some scraps up, guys. Okay, so that would actually look quite lovely for a card. I'm actually going to glue this side down, and then I'm going to add stuff. So I'm going to go with it. Now you don't have to always cut your piece the same. A lot of times, if this is 4 1/4, I'll cut this at 4 1/8. You know, but I'm just going to use what I have here. Simplify things. So there's my card base. This paper pack offers a lot of good stuff. And I mean, all you have to do is cut out something from here. You can also do one of the tags. I'm going to save these tags for inside my box though. So I'm going to cut out Happy Holidays. So I have that. I'm going to cut out another thing in here. And I think I'm going to grab the tree. So I cut out my tree. I placed it down. I did back this to white cardstock to kind of frame it. I'm going to glue that down. If you'd like to do anything else, you can. But there is a Christmas card you can make. Yep. And I will stick it in my box. And for now, I'm just going to stick my envelope in there. So you can get a lot of cards and a lot of envelopes in there. So I think mine is pretty dry. I'm going to take off that top piece. Oh, look what got caught in between there. So when I'll flip this up, and this just places right on in there. I'm not pressing it all the way up against. Leaving a little spacing there. So I'm just going to add my glue to this last piece. And then try to center it on that back piece the best I can. So there's that. Let's grab this out, and I'm going to cut out my tags. So I have all of mine cut out, and they fit perfectly in this small pocket. Now I said string was optional. I'm just going to grab some here. And you can poke a hole through here. Place your string in there. And there is your tag. And then you can cut your tails to however length you want. Now another way that you can do this is to stiffen up your tag for a little more durability, and you can back that to some white cardstock and then, you know, cut out and around. So I have all my tags in my pockets. So little note cards, what you can do is cut pieces and you can add little sentiments to them or put the sentiments in here. Sentiments meaning cutting out a bunch of these, letting them decide, okay, I'd like to put blessings on this little note card or whatnot. And I am not backing these, I'm just cutting them out. So the idea is, here are some of those little pockets. You can place that in there. Somebody could just glue that down. Any one of them that they would like. So here's a couple. Or they can use the back side too. Stamp or handwrite. Okay, next, the pencil holder. Now I did not give a measurement for the piece that you would be using, and the reason why is because everybody has a different barrel size. The idea is that it's going to sit in right between. So this is a brand new mechanical pencil. If the lead is out, you're going to want to push that lead back in, and then it will fit perfectly in there. 5 7/8 is about what that is. So what you're going to want to do is grab a piece of scrap cardstock that matches. And here's something. I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch on this. So what you're going to want to do is find the pen or pencil that you're going to use, and here, down here, you're just going to fold in maybe a 1/4 of an inch on one side, okay? You can kind of help it bend a little. That is what's going to glue down first. So if you have your pencil down there, how to measure is this comes around your barrel, and I'm going to be doing this so that it hits right here just underneath this little thing. So all I'm going to do is kind of measure. So I have that. I'm going to bring over this one, and I can cut this over here. Okay. This side, I'm going to go with a little, probably another a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. Okay, you don't want it too tight, but you don't want it so loose either. And so for me, this is going to be a good size. It isn't going anywhere. Once this is put together, it is not going anywhere. So figure out your barrel size. That's what I did. So it's got a little bit of play in there. And I'll add glue to one of these flaps. Whoops, that's quite a bit. And I'm going to glue the flaps together there. Hold it for a moment, make sure it's taking. And once you do that, at the bottom, add a little glue. Slip your pencil through, or pen. Figure out where you want that. I think I'm putting mine right there. It's not centered, it's over here because I have this, but I put it just to where the decorative paper is. And I'm going to let that glue down. I'll bring it up so you can see. That should be glued down. So now when I fold it all up together, it's going to hold it there. And it's all contained. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. Give it a try. Use the paper I used maybe first to do your first one, if that's a paper that you like. If not, you've seen how the paper places. Use whatever decorative paper that you would like. Happy crafting, and I will see you on my next tutorial, which isn't too far away.